what we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with the U.S. a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching Gulf Today on News X World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The United States Central Command will host a conference in Doha on December 16th to plan an international stabilization force for Gaza. Over 25 countries are expected, with sessions focusing on command structure and key operational issues. According to Gaza's Civil Defense Agency, Storm Byron has claimed lives of at least 16 people, including 3 children in Gaza. Flooded tents and temporary shelters worsened conditions for displaced residents. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has stressed that independence along the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital is vital for lasting regional security and stability. Has announced elections within a year and called for a two-state solution. Israel's cabinet has granted legal status to 19 West Bank settlements, including 2 evacuated 20 years ago. The move aligns with settlement expansion despite international opposition and rising settler Palestinian violence. Syria's Directorate General of Antiques and Museums has announced that scientific tests confirmed 33 cuneiform tablets, though it dates back to the 2nd millennium BC, were in fact high-quality forgeries, as the discovery reveals challenges faced by war-torn nation post-war in protecting their national heritage. Jordanian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Ayman Safadi held a phone call with UN General Antonio Guterres amid rising tensions in the region. They are reported to have discussed UNRWA. This comes as the headquarters was raided by Israeli forces. Foreign ministers from Jordan, the UAE, Indonesia, Pakistan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Egypt reaffirmed UNRWA's irreplaceable role, welcoming the UN General Assembly's renewal of its mandate for 3 years under Resolution 302. They condemned Israeli forces storming the UNRWA's headquarters as well. According to Gaza's Civil Defense Agency, Storm Byron has claimed lives of at least 16 people. According to reports, the United States Central Command will host a conference in Doha on December 16th. The event will bring together partner nations to plan the international stabilization force for Gaza. Over 25 countries are expected to send representatives. Sessions will be focusing on the command structure and other key issues related to the Gaza force. The The conference is expected to be a critical step in shaping the international response to this crisis in Gaza. Meanwhile, the details on specific countries participating have not yet been announced. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Rohan Gunaratne. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Singapore. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now, as phase 2 talks continue despite the dire situation in Gaza, what objectives should this international stabilization force in Gaza prioritize to ensure both security and humanitarian access and peace for both Gazans and Israel?
Asuma, the main role of the International Stabilization Force is to fill the vacuum that has been created in Gaza in phase 2. That is, very soon, phase 1 will come to an end. That is, there's only one hostage body to be returned by Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. When that is done, there'll be a phase 2 in Gaza, which is the disarmament of Hamas. And of course, the IDF will withdraw from Gaza. When that happens, there is going to be a space or a vacuum created. And that vacuum needs to be filled super fast, because otherwise there'll be other terrorist and criminal entities, and Hamas itself will again start to revive. So that is why the Doha government is hosting a conference to establish and create and to discuss the modus operandi of the International Stabilization Force. It's a very key meeting because it demonstrates that there's a commitment on the part of governments around the world, especially Muslim and Arab governments, to participate in the International Stabilization Force in Gaza. So this is good news, good progress for Trump's peace plan.
Yes, Professor, thank you for highlighting the urgency of this situation. And so now, how might the command structure of Gaza Stabilization Force, how do you think this is going to affect its legitimacy and effectiveness on the ground? As you know, Hamas is not disarmed yet.
Phase 2 is what you call disarmament of Hamas. Another phrase they are using is the demobilization of Hamas. It is not only Hamas, although all the documents refer to Hamas. It is Hamas and 8 other terrorist groups that participated in the October 7, 2023 massacre. And these groups need to be disarmed, and so that there will be a peaceful environment created in Gaza. So the International Stabilization Force has a plan, and one of the first activities of that plan is to disarm these organizations and ensure that there is a proper police force that is being built in Gaza with the participation of the Palestinian people. But to do this, there must be a capable structure that will be led by the United States, of course supported closely by US allies and friends, and also a very significant portion of the force would be Muslim and Arab countries.
Yes, and what political risks do these participating countries face by joining this international force in Gaza? And also, what would that mean for their relationship with Israel?
Israel will have to review what is happening. For example, Israel has expressed deep reservations about having a Turkish military being a part of the International Stabilization Force, but I believe that these are matters for discussion, these are matters for debate within the community of nations that are going to participate in constituting the International Stabilization Force. There'll be many debates, there'll be many discussions, and when it comes to this force, because as you said, there are many risks involved, and there can also be fighting, there can be return to war. But I believe that because the mediators have very good control and with Hamas and the other terrorist groups, they will not go back to war. If they go back to war, certainly IDF will come back and IDF will dismantle Hamas and these other groups, because IDF has built huge capabilities in the parts of Gaza it is controlling at this point, and it will be ready to strike Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Palestinian Mujahideen Brigade, and many other groups that participated in the October 7th, 2023 massacre.
100%. Thank you very much, Professor, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now we stay on the region. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has emphasized that achieving Palestinian independence along the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem and its capital is the only way to ensure lasting regional security and stability. Speaking at a conference in Rome, Abbas has said a fully sovereign Palestinian state would act as a responsible partner, not a security burden, while promoting peace and stability. He stressed that Palestinians aspire to live with freedom, dignity, democracy, pluralism, and equality, rejecting violence. Abbas has announced that parliamentary and presidential elections will be held within a year after the war ends, calling the lack of an independent state a historical injustice and root cause of instability. Abbas has also highlighted strong Palestinian-Italian ties, thanking Italy for support in state building, police training, humanitarian aid, and European monitoring at Rafah. He has called for a full two-state solution under international law, stating that a sovereign Palestine alongside Israel is key to lasting peace. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Professor Rohan Gunaratna. He's joining us as an international affairs expert from Singapore. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now looking at this, can a renewed commitment again to a two-state solution address the underlying causes of long-term instability in the region? How do you analyze the latest calls by a Palestinian leader?
Asuma, there is significant global support to create a two-state solution. But after the October 7th, 2023 Hamas-led massacre in Israel, where 1,200 people were killed, 251 were taken hostage, that support for a two-state solution has diminished in Israel. So the Israelis do not agree that there should be a two-state solution, because they believe the same way Gaza was used by Hamas to stage a very brutal and a barbaric attack against Israel, that there will be another attack. So Israel should be convinced, not by words, but by actions, by the Palestinians and the Palestinian leaders such as Mahmoud Abbas, that there will be no attacks. And I believe that the first step towards that is the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian leaders should call the October 7th attack as a terrorist attack. Similarly, the Muslim and the Arab leaders should call Hamas a terrorist group, not a resistance movement. So if there is maturity on the part of the Palestinian people, Palestinian leaders, Muslim leaders, Arab leaders, by calling a terrorist, by calling a terrorist group, and by calling a terrorist attack a terrorist attack, then the Israelis will certainly cooperate and collaborate towards establishing a two-state solution. I myself support the idea of a two-state solution. But in this environment, where there are numerous terrorist attacks and there is jubilation of these attacks, and some leaders are calling Hamas a resistance movement, I don't think the Israelis will ever allow the creation of a two-state solution. So there must be a dialogue, there must be a common understanding to move in that direction.
Yes, I completely agree with you. If we do move, what do you think? What should these, Palestinian elections be held? Who should hold these elections, and who should organize these elections, and what should be careful about?
International stabilization force will ensure that there is not only security but also political system is built and also elections are held. So I believe that the meeting in Doha is so important for future security and stability of the Middle East and the world. So the International Stabilization Force will play a pivotal role in ensuring that there is a proper election, but we should all make sure that Hamas and any terrorist group has no right to stand for elections, because if that happens, it will be a mockery of justice, because a group that stages an attack should have no political role in the future.
With that, I would like to thank Professor Rein for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, moving on to Israel, Israel's cabinet has decided to grant legal status to 19 settlements in the occupied West Bank, a move that includes 2 settlements evacuated 20 years ago under a security-focused pull-out plan. The announcement has sparked strong condemnation from the Palestinian Authority, which views the action as a step towards erasing Palestinian territorial claims. The decision, proposed by far-right leaders Bezalel Smotrich and Israel Katz, aligns with Israel's ongoing settlement expansion. Despite widespread international opposition, most world powers consider these settlements illegal under international law. But Israel maintains that its historical and biblical ties to the land justified their existence. Meanwhile, violence between Israeli settlers and Palestinians continues to escalate, with settler attacks reaching a record high in October this year. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back Professor Rein. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, how does granting legal status to, these settlements in this region affect any viability of any solution, peaceful solution, and what consequences might this decision have for Israel's relations with Palestinians and also international community?
Asuma, as you very rightly mentioned, these settlements by the Jews in West Bank is problematic. Of course, the argument Israel is making is that Judea and Samaria is the real name of West Bank, and historically and biblically that region belongs to the Jewish people. So I think that there should be a very important dialogue and discussion between the Palestinians and the Israelis on how to move forward. But right now, the way Israel is doing it, there is unhappiness. So I believe that there should be a discussion between the Palestinian and the Israeli people and any authority on the part of the Palestinians and the Israeli government on these settlements. Because if these settlements continue unilaterally, then what's going to happen is there'll be more violence in the settlements, and even West Bank will become like Gaza. It can become a battlefield. So it has to be done very carefully, very systematically, and with the blessings of the Palestinian people. Because the Israelis and the Palestinians have been friends for a very long time. Even before Islam came to that region, there was a Roman and a Greek civilization. I myself visited Turkey, and I saw a statue of Zeus from Gaza. So I don't think that one should say that this territory belongs to the Israelis, this territory belongs to the Palestinians, because there are 2 million Palestinians living in Israel already. So I think that Israelis can live in the West Bank, but it must be done in a way where it doesn't hurt and harm the sentiments of the Palestinian people. The same way 2 million Palestinians live in Israel, the Israelis too can live in West Bank, but they should have a cordial relationship with the Palestinians.
100%. You give us such an important point, and thank you for highlighting that. If this reasoning is used across the world, God knows what happens after that. With that, I would like to thank Professor Rein for sharing that insight and staying with us throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we stay in the region. Thank you. Gaza Civil Defense Agency has said that at least 16 people have died in the last 24 hours, including 3 children who died from exposure to cold as winter storm batters the territory of Gaza. Heavy rains from Storm Byron has flooded tents and temporary shelters across the Gaza Strip, compounding the suffering of the territory residents, nearly all of whom were displaced during more than 2 years of war. Meanwhile, the UN International Organization for Migration has said that hundreds of thousands of displaced Gazans face flooding of their tents and shelters by heavy rains, and materials for shelters and sandbags are not being allowed to enter the enclave. However, the Hamas-run government has said that a total of 12 people are dead or missing as a result of the storm, with at least 13 buildings which have collapsed and 27,000 tents flooded. Now we move on to our next news, to Iran. Iran has introduced a new tiered gasoline pricing system to curb rising the costs. The first major change since the 2019 price hike that triggered deadly protests under the new structure. Subsidized rates remain low for the first 15 gallons per month, but the cost increases sharply beyond that. Despite the changes, Iranian gasoline remains among the cheapest in the world. The government's decision is driven by the country's economic strain, fueled by inflation and international sanctions. While some view the move as necessary for managing the economy, others, like taxi drivers, fear the price hikes will only worsen the financial pressure on ordinary Iranian citizens. This latest shift raises concerns about potential unrest as the country grapples with ongoing economic challenges. Now for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Hamid Reza Gholamzadeh. He's a director of Diplo House, joins us live from Tehran. Thank you very much, Dr. Hamid-zadeh, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World.
Good morning, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Now, what more can you tell us about this ongoing situation in Iran?
You know, the price of the fuel in Iran is very low, and even despite the fact that Iran is a oil producer, and has its own facilities for production of oil and fuel and such things, yet the price of the fuel in gasoline for the cars, for the consumers, is even less than what the government pays for production of that. So it pays a huge amount of subsidy for the fuel, and because of that, the consumption is more than usual. So the government needs to, on one hand, manage the consumption, to reduce the consumption, so that people try to save some more fuel, and on the other side, to decrease the subsidy that is paying for the public, so that it can actually have some to raise some income from that, and on the other side, to use the income and the revenue that it benefits from the increased price of the fuel for the poorer part of the society, or to put subsidies on other sides and other parts of the economy, so that the poor community can benefit from that. So that's the formula for that, and the logic behind the decision. The difference between this time and the increase of prices that we had in 2019 is that this time the normal amount remains in place. So every car has 60 liters per month with a subsidized price, and then if they have 100 liters per month of the semi-subsidized price, we can say. And after that, it was just the same price. Now they have kept this quota, and beyond that, people need to pay the new price, which is actually the third price, we can say. Yet this price is 10% of the Persian Gulf FOB, and it's still too low compared to the global prices. So it means something about 20 cents, I can say, per liter, even this increased price. So that's the the situation that we are seeing. So I don't expect with this situation that the main quota of subsidized fuel prices remaining in place. It doesn't seem that we are going to witness any protest or something like that. Last month, actually, I went to refuel my car, and I expected a long line, but it was very normal. The situation was 10 p.m. and actually a couple of hours before the new rules to be in place. But the situation was normal, so it means that people are not panicking from the new settings, and with that, they are not we're not expecting unrest and like a few years ago, and we should remember that for the taxis and shared cars and the Uber-like internet taxis and such things, the quota remains the same, so they are working like in the past.
Thank you for highlighting that. And Dr. Gholamzadeh, my apologies for pronouncing your name wrong earlier. And
no problem.
Thank you. And Dr. Gholamzadeh, now bringing international sanctions into our conversation, what role does these sanctions play in shaping Iran's domestic economic policy decisions?
The sanctions are not paralyzing Iran, but it's natural that it is making some obstacles and some problems. Development of the economy is facing some challenges, working with other countries is obstacle, but it doesn't mean that in the country and the economy is paralyzed. There are some challenges which can be handled, but handling the situation needs time and needs effort. And not all the governments are putting enough efforts and enough time to that, because governments usually are thinking four-year periods because they want to be re-elected and they want their people to be elected after them. So the timings are usually very short-term mindset, and because of that, the government usually do not want to make huge changes or infrastructural changes. Because of that, the necessity of removal of sanctions remains in place. Wherever, in any circumstances or any areas that one official has decided to actually to work and to make decisions despite the sanctions and to circumvent sanctions, it has been almost successful in all cases. But the point is that the whole government is not doing that because it takes a lot of effort, huge efforts and huge time and huge resources. So it takes time. But the point is they are doing their best. On the other side, they want the economy, the sanctions to be removed so that the economy can be developed. For the development of economy, removal of sanctions could be very helpful because it brings some extra sources of revenue to the country, and transactions would be easier for the country. So that's the necessity for removal of sanctions. But it doesn't mean that they are making huge problems to kill the country or kill the Iranian economy.
And
sure.
Lastly, Doctor, how can Iran balance economic reform while protecting vulnerable populations?
The way the Iranian economy is working is very addicted to oil and oil prices, and it has always been based on subsidies. So to remove the subsidies, which are hidden subsidies, and bringing them to the public, those who are in need, would be more efficient. So, like for example, the fuel that we're discussing right now, the subsidy that government is paying for the fuel is benefiting those who have cars, but almost half of the community, half of the population do not have cars. They cannot afford buying a car. So the poor side of the community of the population, which do not have the power to the money to buy a car, they cannot benefit from the subsidies of fuel either. So that's the hidden subsidy that is ignoring the poorer part of the society. So that's the main gap that the government needs to fill. to change the subsidies to benefit those who are more in need. It was done once during President Ahmadinejad, and at that time they started to pay some part of the subsidy in cash to the families. So they divided the society into smaller parts, and they decided to pay to the lower parts of the community based on the income some subsidies in cash so that they can benefit, and the richer part of the community would not receive that subsidy. So this formula, which can be discussed, of course, the method of implementation of that, it needs to be carried out so that the weaker side of the society can benefit more from the subsidies, and in that way, government can help them better, and government can receive more money in terms of access from the richer part of the society. So that's how the economy needs to be, let's say, more real and more justified and more justice-based, so that they
Yes.
can serve the economy on one side, serve the poor people on one side, and work with the richer part of the society on the other side.
Thank you very much. I had no idea about the subsidy and bringing us. Thank you for highlighting such history with us on Newsx World. With that, I would like to thank Dr. Gholamzadeh for joining us from Tehran. And that's a wrap on Gulf Today. Keep watching Newsx World for more news updates from around the world.